A theater is a place where a story meets an audience. The audience is live. The story is live. It all happens in real time. The theme of this particular year did not start with how the story meets the audience. It started with how are the student performers going to be safe? How are the student crew members going to be safe? And with those restrictions, how could we use the space to actually allow performance? That's how it all began.
Well, so first of all, what makes it different is, of course, that we are doing it during the time of the plague. So
we just had to be very specific about every single procedure down to, how do you hand, a costume off to an actor in a safe way.
Half of my job is making sure people get hand sanitizer and making sure that they're staying 6 feet apart. I spend half of rehearsal just enforcing COVID guidelines, where normally I would be doing everything else that I have to be doing.
We have to find ways as to how to make a fully realized and fully staged musical production with all of those restrictions in place. And that, of course, leads us to discovering creative solutions.
I understood that the space needed to be organized for camera work, but I knew that in order for students to be performing without masks, they would need to be in isolated spaces. So began a year of design for safety, design for cameras, design for plexiglass.
We are actually discussing the possibility that you may also become the gorilla.
Oh, Herr Schultz. Can I believe what I see? But this is too much to accept. It's so rare, so costly, and so luxurious. If you brought
I remember when I first signed on to do this show, our director was like, everything you think of theater and everything you know about performing in theater, just throw that out of the window because that's not what we're going to be doing.
I've never had to act in this way in front of a camera. I've never been in a production where it's split among venues, people on the main stage, people in the black box. I've never been in a production where we've had to stay in our 6-foot squares and where we've had to be masked the entire time. A lot of it is completely foreign.
I don't think Stepan was like, I'm choosing cabaret because something fucked up's gonna happen, It's like something fucked up happened, and now we have to roll with it,
There were times in rehearsal that I thought, okay, this is really not working, and we are not getting anywhere. But that was because I really didn't see what was happening behind the mask.
You excited?
Yeah, as you can tell on my face, which you can't see. This is a big smile.
Everything around masks was challenging. We had actors wearing masks as costume, and then they also had masks that were just for them getting different places backstage.
I have only sort of discovered the work that many of the actors have done on their characters once we were able to take off the masks and move into those glass enclosures.
So I can kind of do whatever I want. I get a box that has wheels, step one. Like, that's crazy. I'm in a box. I'm in a box that has wheels. I push it around and I live in it.
I got to be honest. We are putting a lot of stock into a technology that we don't know yet if we can afford it.
We had 2 weekends of tech as well as 3 weekdays of tech. It is the most insane tech process I have ever seen. It took us 3 weekends and 3 weekdays to get through a single run of the show, teching it. We are having to create this show in 2 separate spaces that have to connect and run off the same boards, these boards here.
I feel like their job just never ends. Of course, tech is very, very long, and it's been happening forever. It is hard. It is hard to do anything in a pandemic. You know, it's hard to do anything. It's hard to wake up. So I think it shows that a lot of people here really care.
So many of the characters in the play are really sort of struggling against those obstacles. They are sort of determined to live their life the way they have lived it. They want to continue dancing and singing and partying and all that sort of stuff against all odds.
This fight that we've been doing to get this to everyone.
Yes, it's different. Yes, it's more technically challenging. Yes, it's more challenging for the actors, but also it's something that's never been done before.
The thought of getting to make work with other bodies is like, the whole philosophy of theater is that we're coming into a room to be closer and think about big questions together and make meaning through art. Because this is so much of like who a human being is and the way that we communicate with each other. And if theater is about communication, right, this part of our face, our mouth, the way that we smile or frown or clench or open, that piece of vocabulary is like fundamental to the actor's craft.
When you start from the supposition that everything is possible, and then, of course, as you go and try to fulfill the everything, then everything won't be possible. But a little bit less of everything is always much more than a little bit more of very little. Our department is really proving that everything is possible. And I think it should be inspiring to everybody. And no matter how exhausted we all are, we are pulling this off. And that's pretty awesome.
I guess I best be going. You haven't heard the last of me. You will all be receiving very cryptic emails.